Charlie McAvoy's facial injury is a massive loss for the Boston Bruins, and if last night's game in Anaheim is any indication, the defense is only going to continue to struggle and put this team firmly back into tank mode.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode, we are going to break down last night's loss to the Ducks in Anaheim that was played without Charlie McAvoy. It was announced yesterday that there is no timetable for his return after undergoing surgery from taking a puck to the face earlier this week. And his loss just magnifies Boston's defensive issues, and they're only going to continue to struggle because he's probably not going to be back until 2026. We'll look at the storylines, the stats, and the significance of last night's loss. Bring you all the latest here on the Black and Gold. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on socials at Locked NHL Bruins. That's on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. I am your host, Ian McLaren, as I said, and I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan who's been covering this team and the NHL for various major outlets for nearly 20 years. And Marco Sturm said it best after last night's game. The offense was there. The defense, not so much. The Bruins losing 4-3 to the Anaheim Ducks despite a 2-goal performance from Morgan Geeky that propelled him to the top of the NHL goals scored list so far this season, which is just absolutely remarkable. We'll talk about that later on in the show. Sturm said it's frustrating to leave without a point. Offensively, we did a good enough job that we could have won the game, but defensively, it was just not good enough. And that's kind of been the story for this team for the majority of the season, and that was with a healthy Charlie McAvoy in the lineup. We learned yesterday that he did indeed have surgery after taking that puck to the face on Saturday in Montreal. There was clear dental damage that was suffered. If it is, say, a broken jaw, that can take up to 6-8 weeks to recover. Therefore, he could be out of the lineup until a couple weeks into the new year. And that would be a massive loss. Well, it's going to be a massive loss for the Boston Bruins. We already saw that play out last night. Now, to the Bruins' credit, they did have the majority of the shots on goal, and they did enough offensively in order to win, getting goals from Morgan Geeky ×2, as well as Mikey Eyssimont. But Ian Moore, an unlikely hero for the Ducks, scoring with just under 4 minutes left in the game, or 3.5 minutes, with Alex Steeves somehow, for some reason, parked in front of the net, blocking Joonas Korpisalo. And he just, I guess, didn't get a good look at it, and that was all she wrote. We all came into this season believing the Bruins would be better defensively because of the demands placed on them by Marco Sturm, a renewed sense of team defense and better systems, etc. This team has done anything but struggle to score. Offense is not a problem for these Boston Bruins, which is pretty remarkable when you look at the lineup that they are deploying. It's the team defense that, as Sturm said, just is not good enough. Nikita Zadorov, who wore an A for the Bruins on Wednesday in the absence of Elias Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy, said, it meant a lot to him to wear the A. He's got some pride in it. being in the NHL and being on this team. But as well as he's played this season, and he's well living up to the contract that he signed last summer, the rest of the lineup is not performing. And if the Bruins are going to have to rely on Henry Jokiharju and Jonathan Aspirot for considerable minutes over a significant length of time, you're just not going to win that many games, with all due respect to both of those guys. The defensive minutes were spread out pretty well. Jokiharju bottomed out at 14:38. Elias Lindholm at 22:01. But Lindholm was a -3 on this night, as was Jokiharju. And they just were not able to lock it down enough to compensate for Morgan Geekie's performance. And they just took advantage, the Ducks did, of the Bruins' leaky defense at the moment. And that's just the way it is. The Bruins did have the majority of the shot attempts in this one. They had the majority of the shots and scoring chances. Anaheim had a couple more high danger chances, and that was fabricated by being able to get to the front of the net more easily than the Bruins were. On the opposite side, Lucas Dostal, you could argue, kind of stole this one, even allowing 3 goals. He's still at a .923 save percentage. But the big reason the Bruins lost this game was indeed because of their defensive depth being tested and the fact that it was already problematic. The defense has been an issue for this team all season long. Zadorov, his perspective is that you don't get too high, you don't get too low, you help each other. And he thought they did it well through the first 50 minutes of the game. And then it just completely flipped in the last 10 minutes. This was a 1-goal loss in regulation. And there have been several of Boston's losses so far this season that have come similarly. 1-goal losses in regulation, failing to get a point. Zadorov said they did it, 4 or 5 times this year already. Could have 4 points more at least, could be 8. Get the game to overtime, and those points are important. And he said it's time to mature a little bit, take responsibility, and play like a man. And he stepped up. He has stepped up for this team. He's a 5-on-5 and penalty-killing monster, eager to hunt opponents, delivering huge checks, pushing the offensive pace. And it meant a lot to him, like I said, for him to wear that A. He loves being part of this group, takes pride in being a leader. I've argued that he should be wearing the C. Big shoes to fill with Charlie out of the lineup, Elias Lindholm out of the lineup. And when he gets a chance, he's going to do his best, give it a little extra, because those guys are not currently in the lineup. The defense, again, Jokiharju was on the ice for Ian Moore's winning goal, which Korpisalo could not see because Alex Steeves was parked in front of him, which is just kind of inexplicable. Why would you have a forward standing in front of your goaltender? Zadorov said, when you play scared in this league, you're going to lose hockey games. You've got to mature, grow up a little bit, take pride, don't play scared. As soon as you sit back, they smell blood. Obviously, the Ducks are a good offensive team, and they were able to capitalize on it from an unlikely source in Ian Moore. Sturm added, it starts with our D. We did not do our job. Let's put it that way. We want to make sure they're going to defend. That's it, he said. It's your job. Other guys have to react. Too much panic for some reason, I would say, cost us a few goals tonight. And again, if McAvoy's out for several weeks, the Bruins either need to add some reinforcements on defense because Jokiharju, Aspirot, not the answer. And it could be a real tough go. I would have gone with Jeremy Swayman last night. They went with Korpisalo. He still made 29 saves. But that last one was a real heartbreaker. Not necessarily his fault because, again, Steve's was parked right in front of the net. It wasn't all negative last night. Morgan Geeky did score a couple goals. And, again, the Bruins are getting those offensive moments. We'll discuss the stats from last night's game as well as the significance of the loss here more as the podcast continues. Let's be real here, fellas. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. They make it easy to get started. You connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. Fast, simple, private process, all handled by real doctors. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonnhl to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonnhl. And don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONNHL so they know that we sent you. Thank you once again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We are breaking down last night's game between the Boston Bruins and the Anaheim Ducks. A 4-3 loss, one that the Bruins had a chance to at least get a point in, and in large part due to the heroics, or not heroics maybe, but the strong play of Morgan Geeky, who is now tied for first in the NHL in goals scored this season with 14, level with Nathan McKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche and Leon Draisaitl of the Edmonton Oilers. And in 2025, Geeky has scored the second most goals in the NHL, second only to his teammate, David Pastrnak. Just an incredible run that this guy is on, and you no longer can necessarily just chalk it up to good luck, although he does have a dangerously unsustainable shooting percentage at the moment of 25%, which is higher than what he had last season when he scored a career high 33 goals in 77 games. He does have a minute more ice time per game on average, and he's shooting the puck with a bit more regularity. So that's keeping things going for him. Just an unbelievable run that this guy has been on. It's pretty crazy. Sturm said he's a very dangerous guy, a great release, dangerous on the power play. The reason why he scores a lot of goals that's for sure, is because he has such a good release. It's not necessarily the quantity of shots that you take, as long as they are quality looks. And he's getting those. He's making good on them. He said he liked the Bruins game for the most part, but those little opportunities, other teams are going to take advantage. So, yeah, the 2 goals are nice, but if you're not getting the win, it's not as satisfying, right? Geeky, though, who signed a 6-year extension with Boston in June for like $5.5 million, that's looking pretty solid right now in terms of bet for the Boston Bruins. One of Geeky's goals came on the power play. Actually, both of his goals came on the power play. The Bruins went 2 for 2, while Anaheim went only 1 for 3 on the man advantage. Boston won 60% of faceoffs. They had a 39-33 advantage in terms of shots on goal. They did take 26 minutes in penalties, and one of those was as the result of a fight. Jeffrey Viel, who we discussed yesterday, the decision to prioritize him over John Beecher, who was claimed on waivers by the Calgary Flames. He left in the third period after hitting his head on the ice during a fight with Radko Gudas. No update on his status after the game. Obviously, he's in there for his physicality. If he's not able to skate, the Bruins are in California. They'd either have to get someone on the plane and over for the next game tomorrow night, or perhaps Elias Lindholm will be ready to go and step into the lineup. In terms of other stats, it wasn't pretty necessarily for, Henry Jokiharju had a 46.67 shot attempt differential when he was on the ice. Aspirot, 48.94. Those two guys struggled defensively, to be sure. And I just don't think you can rely on them too often and for too long and try to sustain the early success that this team has had. At 5-on-5, the Bruins did have the majority of shot attempts, the majority of the shots, majority of the scoring chances. High danger chances, though, were in favor of Anaheim. And when you have a goalie mismatch, let's be honest, Lucas Dostal is one of the best goalies in the NHL. Jonas Korpisalo, not so much. That was a big reason why the Ducks won last night. He's on a winning streak on his own, only the second goalie to reach 10 wins so far this season. And that was a big reason why the Ducks came out on top of this one. Geeky with the 2 goals. What other players really stepped up here for the Boston Bruins? If you look at the box score, you'll see that the shot leader last night was Jeffrey Viel. He only had 8 minutes and 45 seconds of ice time, but he had 6 shots, a block, a hit, and he also had that fight. So, as much as I criticize that move, prioritizing him over Beecher, he did certainly make his presence felt in this one with the fight, instigating Radko Gudas, 10-minute misconduct, injury, 6 shots on goal, 1 hit, 1 block, a very eventful night last night for VL. Alex Steeves with 5 blocks. Would have loved to have seen a 6th one there as he was parked in front of the net on that game-winning goal. Morgan Geeky led the way with 7 hits, followed by Steeves and Kastelik. That's up front. Aspirot with 3 blocks and 3 hits to make his presence felt. Jokiharju, Elias Lindholm, both -3s on the night. And Steeves was a -2 to lead the team in that negative stat, if you care about those kinds of things. I really don't know what Steeves was doing in front of the net there on that final goal. And I'm sure it was a source of frustration for Jonas Korpisalo, who just did not see that puck on that game-winning goal. The Bruins really could have used that point. They didn't get it. We will break down the significance of the loss, where they stand in the Eastern Conference playoff picture, as well as update the Bruins barometer. Are we buying, selling? Are we holding on this team? All that coming up here as Locked On Boston Bruins continues. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You could even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It's not just the NBA. You can get in on the action with the NHL and the NFL as well. All you have to do is head to FanDuel.com, sign up today, play your game. New customers, if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. As mentioned, the Bruins have left quite a few points on the table here so far this season with these 1-goal regulation losses, the latest of which came last night at the hands of the Anaheim Ducks. At worst, they should have gotten to overtime and at least taken 1 point. It's not the way it happened. Unfortunately, the Bruins, of course, were playing without Charlie McAvoy, who's going to be out for a considerable amount of time, which is devastating for him personally, I'm sure, after having had that injury last year at the Four Nations face-off and the ensuing infection that kept him out late last season. He was off to a fantastic start, on pace for a career year offensively without even yet hitting the back of the net. And the Bruins were already without Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat, Victor Arvidsson. So that's half your top 6 forwards and half of your top defensive pairing. Any team is going to struggle. And again, there's a difference between excuses and explanations. The Bruins could have won last night's game. They should have gotten at least a point. It's harder to win when you're losing half your top 6 forwards and are without your top defenseman. Now, on the surface, the Bruins are still in a decent spot. They're 1 point out of first place in the Atlantic Division, 24 points in 22 games, 1 back of the Detroit Red Wings and 1 up on the Montreal Canadiens. The problem, though, is that they have played 22 games. And that's the most in the Eastern Conference, tied for most in the NHL. And a team like Philadelphia, who's only 4 points behind the Bruins, has played only 18 games. So that's a possible 8 points on the table for them. Meaning, if you look at point percentage, the Bruins are no longer looking as good, right? If you look at point percentage in the Atlantic Division, the Bruins are now 6th, ahead of only the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are at 500, and the Buffalo Sabres, who are at 450. And in the Eastern Conference as a whole, the Bruins are in 13th. And only, again, the Maple Leafs, Sabres, and the New York Rangers have a worse point percentage. So the fact that the Bruins have played a lot of games and only gotten 24 points suggests that they're due to be passed in the standings at some point. Now, those games in hand are only theoretical points. Teams could drop those opportunities and not be able to pass the Bruins. But right now, if you look at teams and the percentage of points that they have accumulated in relation to total possible points, the Bruins have 22 games, so that's 44 points on the table. They've only gotten 24, so that's a 54.5% point percentage. Whereas the New Jersey Devils, they are technically 3 points ahead of the Bruins in the standings, so within distance, but they've only played 19 games. They've got a 7-11 point percentage. Goal differential, the Bruins are now -1, which isn't, terrible, but you don't want to be on the wrong side of things. Technically, they are second in the Atlantic. But again, if you look at the conference point percentage, they are 13th. And if we're doing the Bruins barometer, looking at the current state of things, whether we are holding, buying, or selling, it's really hard to not think that the Bruins tank could be back on without Charlie McAvoy. Yeah, they've gotten great play so far from Jeremy Swayman. He appears to be back. Nikita Zadorov has been very good on the blue line. David Pastrnak, Morgan Geeky continue to thrive up front. But it's very difficult to stay afloat without Charlie McAvoy. He is so incredibly important on the blue line. And you're relying on Aspirot, Jokiharju. That's just not going to get it done. They still have Lindholm in there, who's been one of their best defensemen over the course of the past few years when he's healthy. So it's not as dire as it was last season when they were without both of those guys. But at the same time, it's just, unless they make a move to buy, and I saw it suggested, maybe the Bruins go in and acquire Rasmus Andersson from the Calgary Flames, or go all in and go for Nazem Kadri. This is a topic that I discussed on the podcast back in the summer, everydayers may recall. But it's also like, what are you selling? What pieces are you giving up? Are you willing to trade a first-round pick or prospects for guys who are well advanced in their careers, a pending unrestricted free agent, a guy making $7 million? That's a tough sell, especially if you're going to give up high draft picks and or, prospects, even if ones that are not playing as well as you would like. So it's kind of a holding pattern for now, but I could really see things being tough for this team, especially on this road trip. You've got the LA Kings next. Then you have the San Jose Sharks, who are red hot. For me, I would have gone with Swayman against the Ducks and the Sharks instead of the Kings and the Islanders, maybe. I know he played on Monday, but I would have gone Korpisalo against Carolina and then Swayman for 3 of the 4 games, seeing as you have a 2-day break between the Sharks and the Islanders game. Who knows if things would have been different with Swayman in net over Korpisalo. That's hindsight, but the reality is the winning goal wasn't necessarily on him because he just could not see the puck, and you need guys to know where they need to be, playing the right positions, and I just don't know what Steves was doing there in front of the net. Anyways, that's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL Game Night podcast. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please do subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins if you have not done so already. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Please take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, your favorite team every single day.